anybody can go buy his 16-year-old son for his birthday quite an advanced drone to go fly around. A drone that can perhaps fly up to 20 kilometers away from you.
Sure.
You know, which that becomes difficult. I'm very happy to see though that the civil aviation is now starting to consider these things. So to consider both of those aspects. So firstly, to say the cowboys, to say nobody can buy a drone unless you say, okay, listen, this is what I'm going to do with it. A drone above a certain class.
Yeah.
You can't buy this class drone if you don't have the right paperwork, the right licenses and so on.
Yeah.
And for the second guys, I do think it's a bit unfair if you think about guys wanting to use drones for wedding photography or taking photos on the beach or whatever it may be, or taking marketing material for their company.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem fair that if they're using a small drone like this, they need to have the same certification as that I have, for example, with these massive drones, you know, flying very, very high-risk operations in very, very difficult airspace at night. Yeah. These guys are flying in low-risk operations with a small drone. So that's what the CIA is busy considering. A drone is a very effective tool when it comes to crime fighting and surveillance, but a drone can't arrest anybody. A drone can't do anything on the ground. Essentially, all it is a moving CCTV camera. So it really has to be part of an ecosystem of who is the private security, who is the SAPS guys that are going to respond, and all of those kind of things. But if it's done properly, it becomes incredibly effective.
A lot of the immigration challenges and reach and scale could be solved by a number of drones just roaming over the borders.
There's so many downstream benefits to just having strengthened borders. Employment in our country, the very, very strained healthcare system, and then also the economy. I mean, if we just look at the illicit cigarette trade, for example. I read an article recently, which was actually sent to me by a SAPS member, that the figure is now close to 83% of all cigarettes sold in this country is illicit cigarettes. And you know, you don't understand what that means for our economy, because if you go and have to go buy a packet of cigarettes now, about 34 to 35 rand of that packet of cigarette is tax that goes to the government. So that's what the government is now losing out on, is all of that tax income. So that's the number one thing. Second thing that's going to happen is the giants that produce the cigarettes and bring cigarettes into this country, they might say, well, you know what, this is not a lucrative market for us anymore because most of your cigarettes are illicit. You're not doing anything to prevent the cigarettes from coming in.
Hello, I am Dr. Mandach Flaro, and on today's episode of the SuperLead podcast series, we are joined by Heico Kühn, the COO at UAV and Drone Solutions, Africa's largest commercial drone service provider. Heico has spent over 16 years pushing the boundaries of aviation, and on today's episode, we explore leadership, technology, and the drones industry that's reshaping our African skies. Heico, welcome to SuperLead podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Lovely. So we met briefly at an event we hosted at Gibbs.
Yeah.
And you were in the panel and you started talking about the work that you do. And I was just fascinated. And I thought maybe let's create more time to unpack. But before we get to the work that you do, I want to hear a bit more about Heico. Who are you? Starting as early as possible to where you are today as COO at UDS.
Yeah. Well, let's maybe not go too far back.
we have the time.
Might bore people. But so look, I'm Joburg, born and bred, Joburg boy. I went to school actually just around the corner here, up the road in Bryanston High.
Oh, lovely.
And after school, went off to university. At the then RAU, now UJ. Might be giving away my age a little bit. After university, I then ventured into...
And what did you study?
I studied geography and geophysics at university.
Geography and geophysics.
So, and then after university, I found myself in the airborne geophysics environment. So very exciting.
Airborne geophysics environment.
So essentially what we're talking about there is helicopters flying quite low level and conducting services or surveys for the purposes of mineral exploration.
Right.
So the company that I was working for, quite a prominent airborne geophysics service provider in Africa. They operated in many African countries as well as the Middle East. So that's really where, you know, both my experience in sort of the survey, geography, geophysics environments and that kind of thing, mapping environment, then started moving towards the aviation environment. So I did that for about 7 years, 8 years. I traveled all over Africa, like I said, Middle East.
So these helicopters will just fly not too far from the surface to kind of just scan for minerals?
For minerals, yes.
Wow.
So often contracted by either governments or large mining houses, you know, all the big guys like the Anglos, the Rio Tintos, South 32, etc. And essentially the helicopters fitted with cesium magnetometers that sit outside on the booms, and they essentially pick up a magnetic field or the magnetic signature of the various minerals that are subsurface.
So would it be fair to assume that almost every surface in this continent has somehow been scanned, or is there still more land for helicopters to hover over?
I think a vast area of it has been scanned, yes, but there's still quite a lot that hasn't been done. And again, you know, just purely because of environmental terrain and conditions and so on, why some areas have remained untapped, because perhaps at the time where there was a need for it, the technology wasn't there yet. You know, if we start looking at the Northern Sahara deserts and so on, where the sand is incredibly thick, where you don't get the highest resolution data. And
I see.
Yeah.
So, but if maybe the team for my birthday gets me a helicopter, I can hover around South Africa. Potentially, I could pick up some.
Well, I think that I think again, when we talk about drones later, it's much of the same case where the drone is just a tool. In this case, the helicopter is really just a tool. The equipment that gets used is quite advanced, and then second to that, the interpretation of the data. You know, usually gets done by the doctors and PhDs and so on. To make sure that you don't go and set up your multi-billion-dollar concession in the wrong place.
All right. So there is such an industry that does this. So now you do this for 7 years, and you've got a love for aviation. And then what took place?
So, around about 2015, this is around the time where South Africa sort of had an explosion of drones. Because that's when South African civil aviation promulgated regulations for commercial operations. So look, drones have been along in the country for a long time, but never really in a sort of more commercial corporate environment. And this now allowed large markets to now start playing in this field, because it was now governed. And safe practices and so on.
And then these drones in this commercial environment, what will they sort of do?
So there were many different services that the first thing that where it was the largest sort of explosion of drones in our country was two things: security, because we got high crime, and secondly mining. Because we've got such a rich mining history in this country, and which has helped us a lot in terms of our drone development. We're quite advanced actually in this country in terms of the services that we provide, because there's such a huge market for it.
And then at the mines, it's just the companies just what's the word? Just overseeing what's happening at the mines, or
so from a mining point of view. And if we look away from surveillance and security, from a mining point of view, the drones became incredibly prevalent from a survey perspective. Both survey and inspection, but more if we start looking on the survey side. Surveys are something that happens constantly on a mine, you know, whether it be surveying of their high walls and open pits, whether it be the surveying of their stock volumes. You could now have a drone that could execute the same work for a stockpile per se in 35% of the time. Which is quicker turnaround time, you know, more accurate data, etc., etc.
And that's at the mine. So now, crime-wise, So is it fair to assume that, wherever we are, there could be some drones just hovering, watching who's going to steal whose wallet?
Yeah, so I think in the very urban areas where we find ourselves now, it's not often the case. You would find it now. Well, there's a couple of states that are around us here that have already employed drones.
Yeah.
So in lifestyle estates and so on. It hasn't gotten to the point yet where in certain areas for the states, for instance, where there is permanent surveillance in normal urban areas. Okay. But most certainly, yes, the largest bulk of drones that are being operated commercially in the country at the moment are purely for security surveillance. Okay. And this is split again into two main sectors. First of all, mining, and second of all, state-owned infrastructure. So that would be
I see.
Railway lines and pipelines, fuel pipelines.
Okay.
And again, border management as well.
I see. Right, now, after that time, after 7 years, you then decide to join UDS, no?
So I wasn't with UDS yet. So it was sort of a perfect storm in that there was a company by the name of the iGlobe Group. They were already quite vested in the survey, inspection, and geospatial solution environment. So they created these geospatial solutions where a whole bunch of different survey data, whether it be satellites or manned aircraft or whatever it may be, would feed these solutions of theirs so that their clients, again, mostly in the mining space, would have real up-to-date data. They then saw the big advantage in using drones. So that this satellite data that only pushes through maybe once a month or once every 2 months can be now a lot more up to date. So you can send out a drone and do these mapping exercises a lot more frequently. So they then tasked their recruiter by saying, okay, listen, we need somebody that has got survey experience, but then also aviation experience.
Sure.
And so it was a bit of a unicorn find, and I just happened to find myself the right place at the right time.
Lovely.
Again, I was also at that stage where, eating tuna out of a can in the middle of the DRC jungle for 7 years. You also think that it's...
You spent all the time in the DRC, most of the
time?
Well,
not only in the DRC. I'm using an example.
Okay, so at that time.
Yeah, DRC, Sierra Leone, Angola, Cameroon, all the beautiful places. Difficult places, but very beautiful.
So, and just a sidestep, I'm just curious what some of the things you've learned leadership-wise and from working in these different markets in the continent.
Well, I think incredibly valuable experiences. You find yourself, you are part of a big company. But when you're in the middle of the bush, it's you and your crew, which is often only 2 or 3 man crew. And you're in the middle of absolutely nowhere. So it's really up to you to conduct all the tasks. I mean, you need to do the project management of the entire operation. You need to be a client liaison because you're the only link between the client and what's going on in the field, actually. You need to be a cook. You need to be a driver. You need to be a security guard. You need to be all of those different things. Because there's nobody else to do it, and you're in the middle of nowhere. You also learn quite a lot of resilience. And I think, particularly on what you touched on from a leadership point of view, the biggest sort of aspect that you learn there is really patience. And because, I mean, you're stuck with these 3 guys for 2 months, and you're not going to get out of there for the next 2 months, and it's every single day, every single waking moment you're with these people. So it's important to have patience. It's important to understand that everybody's got a different viewpoint. And you learn different cultures, and you learn different ways of doing things. And you learn to say, okay, listen, let's take the best out of all of these, sort of different cultures, different viewpoints, and let's see how we can make it work the best.
And did you pick up the languages?
As much as I could. I think when you leave, it's like anything else in life, I guess. If you don't practice it, you lose it. But eventually I did pick up quite a bit of Farsi when I was in Iran, in the Middle East. French, obviously a lot of the countries are French. And then Portuguese in Angola, you could get by. I can order a meal.
We can just change this conversation and have it in French, or...
We can try.
Okay. And then what does UDS do?
Right, so with iGlobe, I was there for 7.5 years, almost 8 years, just about 8 years, before I then went over to UDS. Now, UDS, very dynamic and interesting company. So UDS was in fact the first company to be awarded an operating certificate, a commercial operating certificate in this country. At the moment, there's about 106, 107 operators the last time I checked, but they were the first ones in 2015.
Excellent.
Fast forward to about 2019, they were acquired by Bidvest.
Okay.
And in around 2023, the original owners of the company exited the business, and Bidvest essentially manages now the whole company.
Okay.
And it was around 2023 that I then joined.
Okay.
From its inception, UDS, look, its roots started actually in anti-poaching activities in the Kruger National Park.
Interesting.
Particularly when we saw a large spike in the rhino poaching, which unfortunately is still quite prevalent.
Sure.
And from there went into sort of other avenues, specifically focusing on state-owned infrastructure and mining.
Sure.
So where UDS finds itself now is it's most certainly the largest operator in the country.
Okay. And what's the scale like when we sort of say largest operator?
So to give you an idea, somebody like Emirates, and you mustn't quote me on the exact numbers,
Yeah.
and I don't like to compare drones to aircraft, but it just gives you a bit of an idea.
It also brings it
So,
at least
so
to my level.
somebody like Emirates will fly about 18,000 hours a month.
Okay.
UDS operates, our last month now was 19,500 hours a month.
No.
Okay, so we operate, we currently have 340 aircraft
Okay.
that we operate.
Aircraft or
Drones.
Drones. Okay.
Excuse me.
Okay,
340 drones. 340 drones.
Yeah.
We've got about 280 pilots. And
These are people sitting...
these are now the drone operators that actually fly the drone and actually conduct the service.
Okay.
And we are in all 9 provinces, and we operate generally on night shifts, operating between 8 and 12-hour night shifts every single day, 365. Okay. So UDS as a company has got 3 core services. Okay. Firstly being surveillance,
right.
Which I've spoken now about a lot, and that's essentially about 90% of the business.
Sure.
But then we also do conduct surveys and inspections. Okay. So you know the sort of standard surveys, mining surveys, all of those kind of things, infrastructure inspections, asset inspections. Okay. And then last to that is our training organization. We've also got a civil aviation approved training organization.
Say more.
So what our ATO does, the short for ATO is approved training organization.
Yeah.
Our ATO is run by the very competent Nomvula Sitole. Yeah. Who's been in the industry for quite a long time, actually comes from the manned space, also from the training space.
I see.
And by and large, for a long time, our ATO was actually there just to serve our operations because we're such a large business.
Yes.
But we do also provide training to the market at large. So anybody can come in and say, all right, they want to do an RPC license.
RPC license.
So in order to fly, whether it be surveillance or survey, you need what they call an RPC license, which is a remotely piloted aircraft certificate. So RPC, it used to be called an RPL, and Heico essentially changed it to RPC.
Okay.
So that is your initial sort of training.
Yeah.
If you then want to fly further, like you often have to do for surveillance activities, then you would need what they call a BVLOS license or Beyond Visual Line of Sight license.
Okay.
So this training can take you anywhere depending on your availability, depending on your competencies, I guess. Anywhere between sort of 4 to 8 weeks to get through this training.
So if someone loves drones, etc., and maybe they want to change careers, literally they can go apply for this training, and then in a couple of months' time, they're operating some drones, surveilling the Kruger.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I think that's what's been magnificent about the drone industry. I think once you're part of the drone industry circle, there's often quite a lot of negativity, whether it's aimed at the CAA because of how regulated the space is. I've got my opinions about that because I come from the manned space. I like that it's regulated. We don't want drones flying all over the place. Yeah. With regards to the difficulty of the RPC exams, and the license in general. However, I think it's been brilliant in getting our youth through into the aviation phase. Because look, once you've got an RPC and once you get into the industry, it doesn't mean that you're going to be flying a drone forever. There's now many different facets that you can go into, whether it being a drone technician or whether it be in operations or whether it be in flight support and all of these kind of things.
I see.
So in general, in any year, we'll push about 100 to 120 people through that training facility. A year.
That's awesome.
Our absorption rate is quite high, but where we don't absorb, these guys either go into the flight operations area of things, or maybe they use it as a stepping stone to get to manned aviation.
Sure.
But I do believe, and that's just our training organization. Now, you must remember there's many other training organizations.
I'm with you.
Which some might say are competitors. I don't see them as competitors. I see us all working to a common goal in providing the youth with a skill that's very valuable.
Sure.
And that's quite a quick turnaround if you think about all the other internships or things that you can do. It's quite a quick turnaround to get yourself into the working market.
Technical skill very quickly.
Absolutely.
So and where do you see drones going? If I wanted to, I don't know, send something, are they going to kind of at some point become our mini Uber parcel?
Yeah, look, I think it's obviously being trialed all over the world at the moment, in Europe and both the States where Amazon are using them. Takealot here in South Africa has had a few pilot projects. I think it's certainly going to go that way.
Okay.
And I think it's nice to see that the CA are having these conversations like we had at Gibbs as well, but then also conversations that they've had around saying, all right, we need to have a little bit more structure in the air if we are going to start using drones for e-commerce or drones for cargo or drones for delivery. Then you would need things like drone corridors or a proper unmanned traffic management system.
Sure.
To understand exactly where everybody is. So the concept of delivering something with a drone is actually quite simple.
Okay.
And the software that enables that to happen is also quite simple in that it's already been, really what's required is the regulatory framework.
Not a chance.
That's the first thing that is required for us in order to do that.
Okay.
The second part to that is also then to understand, would technology like that be conducive in a country like South Africa? And I mean, these are the open, sort of honest discussions that need to be had.
And what's your thoughts?
Well, I think if we wanted to say that, we need to understand what the socio-economic climate is in our country, and to say that, whether you would want a drone to deliver your parcels or whether it's going to be somebody on a motorbike.
Sure.
That's a skill that's been created for them.
Sure.
Or that's employment that's been created for them. But then if we start talking about critical medical supplies, if we start talking about blood that needs to be delivered, that can get there a lot quicker. This is where the conversation starts becoming
balance,
a lot interesting. To say that, yes, I do think it will be a while before that happens. The other thing is also, just geographically.
Okay.
Cargo drones and delivery drones make a hell of a lot of sense in the United States because it's massive. And you don't often want to use an airplane or a helicopter or, a truck to deliver smaller parcels, smaller sort of e-commerce parcels.
Sure.
South Africa is quite small in relation to that. And most of our people, the majority of our people stay close to big cities. So whether it be Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, Bloemfontein, and once you get it to a central hub, it's quite quick to just, send out a motorbike or a small panel van to go deliver. So we don't really have the same constraints as other countries have in needing to have a middle mile delivery or a last mile delivery, sorry. In Europe, again, same thing. Europe is yes, it's many different countries, but there's a lot of cross-border trade that happens there that often needs these parcels to be moved a lot quicker.
Good. So that's on the movement of goods. I'm curious on the crime piece. Do you think we must kind of just put some of these drones at all these major crime hotspots? Because the insurance companies, the police, and a lot of other organizations, they have a sense of where the major crime spots are at. I wonder what your thoughts are on sort of surveilling crime, surveilling even traffic and the car crashes and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think it's time?
Yeah, most certainly. Most certainly. It really, there's a commercial aspect to it, obviously, to say who's going to pay it. But what we must also remember is a drone is a very effective tool when it comes to crime fighting and surveillance. But a drone can't arrest anybody. A drone can't do anything on the ground. Essentially, all it is a moving CCTV camera. So it really has to be part of an ecosystem of who is the private security, who is the SAPS guys that are going to respond, and all of those kind of things. But if it's done properly, it becomes incredibly effective.
Okay.
We've done various kinds of projects like that where we've had a banking client.
Yeah.
We had an issue with a series of ATM bombings in a particular area.
Yes.
And there we had deployed a drone, and essentially, as soon as the alarms triggers, the drone would deploy to exactly where the alarm has been triggered, and then we could guide the private security on the ground and the SAPs to where the criminal element is.
You should be doing this for everyone.
Exactly.
Imagine.
Exactly. So there's variants. There's really various guys trying to make it work. We work with the SAPs quite a lot, and then obviously Business Against Crime South Africa, which is funded by a number of the sort of top corporates in the country. They have been initiating a number of projects where the use of drones has been very successful.
Sure.
Both within these inner city areas where you say like you mentioned, where the crime hotspots are, but then also on the border.
Just say more about the border, because
so look,
it's such a hot topic in the country.
It is, and you know, it's the guys are really struggling to get a handle of it. Because it's just so vast. The border's so vast, and look, it's not as vast as some of the other bigger countries in the world, but it's vast in terms of the resources we've got available.
I see.
If you go sit on the border there and you speak to the SANDF and you speak to the Border Management Authority and you speak to SAPS, they are all 100% committed to enforcing our borders. But they often just don't have the resources. They often just don't have the numbers, and that's
and
where.
Is that the eyes on the border?
Yes,
Which is where you're
essentially,
coming.
And you know that's essentially where the gap between the infrastructure that gets damaged, such as fencing and so on, the gap between the number of foot patrollers can be bridged by technologies such as drones, which can provide them with a larger overview of what is happening actually on the ground.
And you're not doing this because...
Well, we are doing it, but
okay,
that's
across all our borders.
Not across all the borders, but I can't tell you where exactly we are doing it. That's
So essentially, a lot of the immigration challenges and reach and scale could be solved by a number of borders just roaming, a number of drones just roaming over the borders.
There's so many downstream benefits to just having strengthened borders. Employment in our country, the very, very strained healthcare system, and then also the economy. I mean, if we just look at the illicit cigarette trade, for example. I read an article recently, which was actually sent to me by a SAPS member, that the figure is now close to 83% of all cigarettes sold in this country is illicit cigarettes. And you know, you don't understand what that means for our economy, because if you go and have to go buy a packet of cigarettes now, about 34 to 35 rand of that packet of cigarette is tax that goes to the government. So so that's what the government is now losing out on, is all of that tax income. So that's the number one thing. The second thing that's going to happen is the giants that produce the cigarettes and bring cigarettes into this country, like for example British American Tobacco. They might say, well, you know what, this is not a lucrative market for us anymore because most of your cigarettes are illicit. You're not doing anything to prevent the cigarettes from coming in. We might leave. So it's the benefit of all South Africans for us to make sure that we've got a strengthened border.
And going into the future, where else do you see drones playing a role? Because it feels like there's all these limitations we have as humans and how far our eyes can go, and yet you can see far and wide.
Yeah, so I think from a surveillance point of view, there's certainly a lot more that can be done. what we are now seeing that's a new thing in the market, well, newish, sort of in the past 12 to 18 months, is the more docked drone operations. Now, essentially, what that would mean is that the pilot is not sitting with the drone and flying the drone. The drone would actually be flown from offsite, so the pilot sits in a nice air-conditioned office somewhere rather than next to a railway.
Okay.
And he can then monitor the drone flying. The drone flies from a docking station, as they would call it, and that provides for more automatic flight. Not autonomous, but a little bit more automated flight.
Right.
I think these technologies will become more and more prevalent.
Okay.
And as and when the market is able to sort of demonstrate to the CA that these operations are safe, we can really take a full advantage of the technology. So, for example, this technology already does provide for one pilot to operate a number of drones, not just one.
Oh, I see.
But our civil aviation sort of frowns on that now, because you must remember, when you are flying a drone, you still need to have the aptitude to be able to talk to any surrounding aircraft.
Yeah.
And, you know, it sometimes gets difficult to do that.
Real aircraft now.
Real aircraft, to talk to any other surrounding aircraft. Because as we know, if we are flying in urban areas, we've got a lot of helicopters, whether they be Netstar, Matrix, or whatever, chasing cars, you know. So there's helicopters all over the city, and we need to make sure that, you know, wherever there's a human life at risk, we just stay completely out the way.
I see.
It's a non-negotiable.
Okay.
So there's a lot of work that you need to do as a drone pilot, both flying remotely or on site. The second thing to that technology is then to leverage the technology, again, to a certain extent, that exists for the pilot not to have to focus on his screen from a surveillance point all the time. You know, when you're flying in the pitch dark, yes, the thermal cameras are incredibly good, but it still takes a very trained eye to understand if somebody's hiding behind a bush or if somebody's moving around. But now with object detection and a little bit more AI involved, they can pick up this criminal element already.
Excellent.
You know, and the technology is getting a lot better. When it first became around, then it actually made the work a lot more difficult for the pilot, because there's so many false positives that you got to clear. But as and when it gets a lot better, it will now allow the pilot to say, listen, we can have now in the south of Johannesburg, for instance, 5 or 6 drones flying, one pilot operating it, and he's only going to look at the exceptions. He doesn't have to look at the routine patrols.
Excellent. So I live in this side of the Johannesburg, and it's notorious for traffic. And I have to travel to Gibbs, and I get a lot of time wasted. Flying cars?
Yo. Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Look, and that's not even just South Africa. That's the rest of the world is so much still in smoke and mirror phase, and you know, not really. So yes, you know, the guys in Dubai have the guys, and the guys in China, the EHang company, they've prototyped and piloted many of these flying cars now per se. But again, we need to look at the entire value chain in terms of the upkeep of that machine, in the first place, the second place, and the price. So what's the benefit versus, you know, the cost versus the benefit that you're going to get out of this? If you're going to get to your destination 80% quicker, maybe that helps you. If you're going to get to your destination only 40 or 50% quicker, but for 100 times the price, it doesn't quite make sense.
I'm with you.
And particularly in South Africa, it might make sense up there. I think, you know, again, with a completely different geographical focus that they have there. But for I mean, I don't think you'll ever get, I say ever, you know, technology grows so quickly, we might be completely wrong. But not very soon, rather. Will you get a flying car that's going to be cheaper than a Safari, or cheaper than a Greyhound bus, or, you know, anything like that? And especially because, you know, at the moment, these sort of flying cars that they are trialing take between 1 and maximum 4 people at a time. Which is just not enough to make the economies of scale work.
I'm with you. Now, talking about you now as a leader in this space, you referenced earlier that, you know, in the beginnings, you know, you've got some of this data and there's false negatives, etc. How does someone lead in this tech space where things are changing almost every other day? and sometimes tech is not there yet, and sometimes the cost doesn't justify the benefit. The benefit doesn't justify the cost. What's sort of the mindset like to lead in this space?
Look, I think well, firstly, it's crucially important just to have a good team around you and to understand and accept that you're not going to be the guru and the expert in everything.
Sure.
There are people that need to focus on certain things, and for example, to have a successful business in this particular environment, you need to have technicians that know exactly what they're doing.
Okay.
You need to have very good, or if not the best, instructors.
Okay.
And that don't only instruct from a civil aviation point of view, but that instruct from a surveillance point of view.
So what do instructors actually do, just so that everyone is...
So from an instructor point of view, is they would be responsible for the training all the way through.
Okay.
So for your mandated training from CA, so that's the theory component of it. So actually providing instruction and giving class, essentially, for the theoretical side of it. And then you go to the practical side of it, where you actually then teach the individuals how to fly.
Okay.
And these are, again, they're very important, but it's very important. It's also important to note that it's not just a piece of paper you need to get out of this to say,
Sure.
okay, yes, you can fly a drone from here to there.
Yeah.
It's then the second part of that instruction to say, okay, listen, now you now need to fly a drone. Forget about that. Now you need to provide a security service, or now I need to provide a service.
I see.
So
This is just to access data.
Exactly.
It does nothing yet.
Yes.
The point is security.
100%.
Yeah.
So, and that's where they need to specialize in that. And then also to have a department of people that keeps their ears incredibly close to the ground when in terms of technological advancement. So innovation is a very big part of our business as well, to understand what our strategy is going to be.
Yeah.
You're 100% right that the industry is very much like the cell phone industry, for that matter.
Yes, yes.
You've got a new cell phone and you're the bee's knees only for a couple of weeks before
Yes,
the next
yes.
new one comes out, and you're behind the curve already.
Yeah.
So it's important to understand, all right, where are we going to be in 24 months from now, 36 months from now?
Sure.
How do we need to position that?
Yeah.
How do we need to ensure that we stay relevant and that we're providing the best service we can?
Yeah.
And then also to manage client expectations on the other
there's
side.
clients on the other side. Yes.
Because because you are an expert in this particular field, in drone surveillance, this is the best product for that. But the client might have seen something on TV, or he might have heard something at a drone conference to say, this is now the drone, even though it's not the right one.
Sure.
But often what will happen is these tenders will be, these drones will be written into tenders, and you've got no option but to take part in it. So then you have to make sure that you are very abreast of where clients are in their thinking.
Okay.
And then also, make sure that you're sitting at the table when you're having these thought conversations about saying, right, what is the right tool for the right job?
Sure.
And that's why there's so many different drones. Many different. For example, on our license, I think we got 16 different types of aircraft.
Sure.
Because there isn't just a drone that will do, for example, photography for you and solar panel inspections and mining surveys, and then also security surveillance. That drone does not exist.
Also,
There's a wide variety of jobs.
So the mining surveillance one is a drone on its own.
Yes.
So
yes.
these drones
different
are also
types,
specialized.
Yes, they're very specialized, and so are the payloads. The payloads being the cameras that they carry. The cameras that they carry also vary. So the camera that you would use, for example, for a thermal inspection on a smokestack in an oil and gas environment is much different than the thermal camera you would use for surveillance.
I am with you.
So it's really about understanding those things.
Okay. And you mentioned these people know what they're doing. And I just wonder how it looks like when they make mistakes. They get it wrong. What does it look like?
Yeah, look, I think it's mistakes will happen.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
In our particular industry, and again pointing towards security surveillance, mistakes can't happen. So we make sure that when the mistakes are there, they are mistakes that are never ever gonna be they will never be mistakes that negatively impact our clients. You know, that they will result in a theft or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But there will be operational mistakes, that's for sure. There will be logistical mistakes. Those things happen.
Yeah.
And it's really for the guys just to, you know, for me, it's always been, it's a mistake is not really a mistake if you've known what you've done wrong. If you know what you did wrong,
yeah,
then I'm happy because I know you won't do it again. If you don't think that what you did was incorrect, well, then we need to have a conversation and say, look, this is what has resulted in that decision. This is why you need to maybe do things differently.
Sure.
I think that it's important also not to have that culture of complete micromanagement.
Okay, good.
And, you know, we have the various kind of managers or sort of senior managers within our company to sort of give them a little bit of autonomy.
Sure.
And let them do what they are good at.
Sure.
Without, you know, having to baby everything that they do. Okay. They got to this point for a reason, and they now need to execute on that. And, you know, that also allows people to make mistakes, because you learn from the mistakes. That also allows them to say, look, I made this decision because I was given the responsibility to make this decision. I made this decision. It didn't work out the right way, and I'll try it the different way next time.
As we move towards the conclusion, what can we expect in the next 5-10 years from UDS and the world of drones and flying cars and aviation?
Yeah, so I think firstly from a UDS perspective, I think a lot of growth. I hope a lot of growth.
Excellent.
I think that we are now moving towards a lot more adoption, specifically again in security surveillance, a lot more adoption from the market at large, and not only the big boys.
Okay.
And when I mean the big mining houses. There's a lot more adoption from industrial areas, from community scheme areas, from lifestyle estates and resorts, etc. You know, so there's a lot more adoption coming on to say, okay, listen, we're not seeing this drone as coming in to take people's jobs. We're seeing it as creating more jobs.
Okay, good.
So yes, this drone is going to come in now, and it might replace 2 or 3 foot patrollers.
Sure.
But the drone itself and the drone ecosystem is going to employ a lot more people as well. You know, so I see a lot more adoption in that, and I see a lot more autonomy happening to allow people to focus on what they do well and let the AI do the spotting and whatever needs to happen.
Sure.
And then just really integrating with the entire security service, because like I said, the drone security surveillance cannot be a standalone thing, because otherwise it's just a camera in the sky. It needs to be part of an ecosystem.
All these people you sort of listed, when did they kind of arrive at a point and go, I think we must call UDS? After what meeting, after what's happening, could someone go, why don't you give those guys a call?
Yeah, so I think it's really about understanding who can do the job at the end of the day. You know, so UDS is certainly a pioneer in security surveillance in this country. And the pilots that we employ, the managers that we employ, it's often not pilots. Pilots is something that they've got as an additional skill that they can do. They are security experts.
Oh, good.
So, I mean, we must always just look at the drone, and we do look at the drone. We don't look at the drone like we, running an airline. We're running a business here, and the drone is like a flashlight or handcuffs or whatever. It's just another tool.
I see.
But that being said, everybody that needs to go to the market, there's a number of companies that provide, very good security surveillance services in the country at the moment. Yeah. And again, I don't see these as competitors, because I feel that there's more than enough crime going around in the country, and we all need to stand together for the greater good.
Sure.
It cannot always just be about profits. Okay. It needs to be about us all pulling in the same direction without trying to cut each other's throats, and make sure that we serve our communities. That's the long and short of it.
So if there's a security concern, what's the scale? So can Hlami call you and say, hey, there's some guys that came by my flat, or give me a sense of scale. Who might call you?
So I think that's it goes to your previous question about where do we see the future going.
Yeah.
I do see in the future the drone services being a lot more accessible.
Okay.
Reason being, at the moment, look, it's still a very expensive service to provide.
Yeah.
From a cost perspective, okay? Because, I've spoken now about the docked solutions, which is an expensive a piece of equipment on its own, but it has now said, all right, now we don't have to have a vehicle at site, or we don't have to have a pilot for accommodation and so on, so you save some costs there, but that unit it is expensive.
Yeah.
But in most of the other deployments that we have, it's a very, operational cost is quite high.
Okay.
You can't just have any vehicle. You can't send somebody out to the railway lines with a Toyota Tazz, for instance. It needs to be a 4x4 rugged vehicle that can handle those service roads.
Yeah.
Because, when you can't fly, you must also still then patrol to provide some sort of security service. So that's expensive.
Excellent.
The S&Ts that you need to pay. You also need to pay salaries that go up and up and up as your people get more experienced. And you want to retain them as well as they get more experience. Otherwise, you're just going to be sitting with young pilots.
Yeah.
So it's all of those operational costs. I see in the future where it's going to go now, where the equipment is going to start settling down.
Yeah.
The payloads are going to get more sophisticated. Where you can now start saying, okay, listen, we don't just deploy to the big mining houses or the standard enterprises. We can also deploy to a community.
Okay.
And say, very much the same as what you would do with armed response.
Okay.
To say if there's a panic button, then it will automatically send a drone out, one of these dock solutions, to come and see what's happening there.
I see.
We're slowly starting to get there already.
Okay.
To make it a lot more accessible, not only if you're living in a lifestyle estate or a residential protected estate, access controlled estate, but maybe for the rest of us that are living in the normal suburban and urban areas to be able to have access to this technology.
Excellent.
Not only for protection, but also post that prosecution, where it becomes very important.
Yes. Yeah. And then your thoughts on all this innovation versus privacy for the citizens or for the people wherever they're being.
Yeah, look,
surveyed.
you ask a very good question, and it's a very interesting discussion to have. When it comes to privacy, look, at the end of the day, what we fall under is civil aviation regulations. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of regulations that we need to follow to fly in a particular area. Once we've got those permissions in place, we can fly. So it's very much the same, essentially, as saying when you walk around a shopping mall, and there's cameras all over the place. But what we all see is before you walk into the shopping mall, it will tell you this place is under 24/7. So, for example, if you go into a residential estate, the homeowner, it's the responsibility of the homeowners association that gives us the permission to get the permission from all of their constituents before you're able to fly. But once we've got that permission, the onus is really on the end user, I guess, from that point of view. But privacy certainly does become a concern. Definitely does become a concern, particularly in the how else would I say it, illegal drone market. Because there's still
illegal drone market.
Yes, 100%. So, I mean, it is a requirement by civil aviation for you to have all of these regulations in place. The drone must be registered, the pilot must be registered, the company must be registered, third-party insurance, etc., etc., etc. I'll be here the whole day if I have to say all the requirements. But all of those requirements have to be in place before you can work with the likes of an Anglo or a government entity or whatever, because they know that those rules are in place. But then there are a lot of people that operate completely illegally because they just don't have the means to jump through all of these hoops and go through this long process, so they just fly illegally. And by flying illegally, they might not know all of these privacy concerns, or they might not know all of these permissions that you need to have in place. So that's very dangerous. So that's people trying to make a living for themselves, but illegally. But then, in addition to that, what you've also got is just good old plain cowboys. Because, unlike a firearm, when you go purchase a firearm, which is a very dangerous thing, you go through quite a long process in this country. Much better than the States. In this country, it's very regulated to try and buy a firearm. But when you buy a drone, anybody can go buy his 16-year-old son for his birthday quite an advanced drone to go fly around. A drone that can perhaps fly up to 20 kilometers away from you.
Sure.
You know, which that becomes difficult. I'm very happy to see that the civil aviation is now starting to consider these things. So to consider both of those aspects. So firstly, to say the cowboys, to say nobody can buy a drone unless you say, okay, listen, this is what I'm going to do with it. A drone below, above a certain class.
Yeah.
You can't buy this class drone if you don't have the right paperwork or the right licenses and so on.
Yeah.
And for the second guys, you know, I do think it's a bit unfair if you think about guys wanting to use drones for wedding photography or taking photos on the beach or whatever it may be, or taking marketing material for their company.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem fair that if they're using a small drone like this, they need to have the same certification as that I have, for example, with these massive drones, you know, flying very, very high-risk operations in very, very difficult airspace at night.
Yeah.
These guys are flying in low-risk operations with a small drone.
A wedding.
So that's what the CIA is busy considering now, and there's been a number of forums and sort of industry initiative that have gotten together with the CIA to say, okay, listen, let's start looking at a categorization model. Okay. So, you know, you categorize the operation by risk.
Okay, lovely. We asked all our guests maybe 2 questions remaining. One is if there's a book you can recommend or a website or something that can enhance our knowledge of what we've been talking about. And 2, if there's one challenge you can just pose to our listeners.
So, in terms of a book from my particular industry, I would probably recommend Drone Professional. It was actually an Amazon bestseller, but it's written by South African authors.
Right.
So
Drone Professional.
Yes, so there's Drone Professional 1, 2, and 3. I believe 4 is almost about being launched now.
Okay.
And it's a whole bunch of different authors. So it's not just one author, but authors from, whether it be our competitors or whether it be from industry bodies that have all come together and basically discuss the industry, how to get into the industry, what types of industries. Because, I mean, we've spoken a lot about surveillance and map mining survey, but the possibilities are actually endless. We haven't spoken about how prevalent drones are in agriculture these days and how that's gone.
Yes.
You know, window washing drones.
Yes.
Gas detection drones, all of these different, there's so many different applications. Anyway, so this might be a good read because it will take you through all of those different ways. So if somebody's considering maybe I should go do a drone license, then you know, there's quite a wide array of things that they can go into.
Sure.
And even somebody that's already a professional can say that, you know, this might just be an addition to my business or something that can, you know, really streamline some of my services.
Excellent.
So that might be something that we can look at. Yeah. And then I think a challenge, it's a difficult one. I think the challenge would really be for people to maybe just try and read up a bit more and understand a little bit more about what's going on our borders. Sure. I think that's really critical for me. I don't think a lot of people know what's going on our borders. Sure. I don't think they understand how porous it is that people are just streaming into our country. And, you know, South Africa's got an open door policy. Anybody can come in, but just come in through the right channels.
Yes.
You know, we love the rest of our African brothers and sisters, and everybody needs to come in, but just through the right channels. Yeah. And also just what it's doing to trade. And I think the more people that are aware of it, the better.
Excellent. Heico, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That was Heico, everybody. Love it.